Russia has been playing a highly dangerous game for years. They have interfered in Georgia's internal affairs and are trying to establish two new countries there. For about 3 years now, they have been stuck in a quagmire in Ukraine. They are walking a tightrope with NATO like an acrobat. This is a risky game. Russia has ambitions to dominate the internet globally. Every year, they spend millions of dollars on propaganda. It is no longer a secret that they have interfered in America's elections. This game is being played all over the world. But if there is a game, then there must be an opposing side, right? If I throw a stone at your window, I know that one day you will throw a stone at mine. So why is Russia so relaxed? Why does no one fear an invasion of Russia? Or is Russia truly an impossible country to invade? If you are new here or have been watching without subscribing, please don't forget to subscribe. That way, you can help decide which videos come next. If everyone is ready, let's dive into Russia. When you think of Russia, what comes to mind? I already know the first thing. Its sheer size. Yes, Russia is a massive country, an enormous country. In fact, it is the largest country in the world, covering 17 million square kilometers. It is larger than the entirety of Europe combined. If you wanted to travel from one end of Russia to the other, you would need to take an 8-hour flight. To put that into perspective, an 8-hour flight could take you from the US to London, from Spain to Dubai, or from Turkey to India. I think this comparison helps everyone grasp just how vast Russia really is. Now, imagine you are a commander. How many soldiers would you need to control such a massive country? You would require millions. Russia is the 9th most populous country in the world, with a population of 145 million. Do not compare the population density in Russia with your own country. In other countries, the population is spread out to a certain extent, but in Russia, most of the people live in the West. So the place where you are trying to position your soldiers will likely be the strongest and most populated part of the country. Russia also has another advantage. Its valuable resources, oil, natural gas, and coal, are not in the West but in Siberia. If your goal is to seize these riches, you must first get past 100 million people concentrated in a relatively small region. Before you can even engage Russia's soldiers, you have to overcome something else: geography. Geography as a natural defense. Russia's eastern border is completely protected by nature. To cross it, you must travel through endless snow-covered lands. Even if you manage to advance, you will eventually have to stop because the Ural Mountains cut through the middle of the country like a natural barrier. There are only a few ways to cross them. The first is by seizing the Trans-Siberian Railway. But I'm sure you won't be able to do that because one of Russia's greatest historical military strategies is the scorched earth tactic. The Russian army burns everything as they retreat, even their own land. If you manage to reach the Ural Mountains, they will have already destroyed the railways. Another option is to wait for the rivers to freeze. When winter arrives, rivers turn into solid ice, allowing tanks to cross. The northern border, a frozen fortress. Let's look at another border, the north. Here, geography becomes an even bigger obstacle. Heavy snowfall and glaciers make military operations nearly impossible. In winter, temperatures drop to -50 degrees Celsius. The north of Russia is covered in ice for most of the year. Even the ocean freezes, making naval invasions impossible without icebreaker ships. And don't think you can approach unnoticed. Russia has already prepared for this. They have established numerous military bases in the Arctic with the most advanced radar and air defense systems. These are not placed in the west, but in the far north, where they can detect even a bird flying or a fish swimming in the ocean. The southern border, a diplomatic shield. Now, let's move to the southern border. Russia's enormous size comes with advantages and disadvantages. One major challenge is that it has too many neighbors, 6 in the south alone: Georgia, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, China, Mongolia, and North Korea. Did you notice something? Russia's best allies are mostly located along its southern border. This is not a coincidence. It's a calculated move by Putin. He knows that Russia's weakest point is the south, so he ensures strong diplomatic ties with these countries. Instead of relying on geography, Russia secures its southern border through alliances and diplomacy. The western border, NATO tensions. Now, let's examine Russia's most complicated and feared border, the West. Why? Because this is where NATO countries are located. In 1991, just before the Soviet Union collapsed, an agreement was made with NATO. But after that, NATO expanded toward Russia's borders. Since then, 5 more countries next to Russia have joined NATO. Ukraine wanted to be the 6th, but we all know what happened. Now, NATO and Russia are direct neighbors, and this creates 3 major concerns for Russia. 1. Ukraine. Russia will do anything to prevent it from joining NATO, and they already have. 2. Belarus. It serves as a buffer zone between Russia and Europe. In the event of an attack from the West, Belarus will be the first line of defense. 3. Kaliningrad. After the Soviet Union collapsed, Russia never gave up this strategic outpost. It acts as a military stronghold to stop any attack from the Baltic Sea. What if we still invade Russia? We now understand the geographical obstacles and logistical challenges of invading Russia. We know about the harsh weather conditions and the diplomatic shields protecting its borders. But let's assume we still want to send an imaginary army into Russia. What would we face? Russia's military power. Russia has the second strongest army in the world, 1 million plus active soldiers and nearly 2 million reserve forces. The largest tank fleet in the world, more than 12,000 tanks. Over 4,000 warplanes and helicopters, making them a major force in the air. A massive navy with 600 plus warships and submarines. But these are just the surface level defenses. Now, let's talk about the real reason why Russia is nearly impossible to invade. Russia's ultimate defense, nuclear weapons. Russia's ultimate defense, nuclear weapons. Russia's entire defense strategy is based on deterrence. In simple terms, if you attack us, we will destroy you. Russia has over 6,000 nuclear warheads. Its Sarmat and Yars ballistic missiles have a range of 10,000 kilometers, meaning they can reach anywhere in the world. But the most terrifying aspect of Russia's defense is its submarines. According to official reports, Russia has 58 nuclear submarines. But in reality, that number is likely much higher. While you are watching this video, Russian submarines are silently patrolling somewhere in the world. They operate in total secrecy, protecting Russia with nuclear warheads. Russia's secret weapon, diplomacy and energy. A country's defense is not just about geography and military power. To be truly unconquerable, you need strong allies. Russia has 4 major strategic partners: China, India, Iran, and North Korea. These 5 countries work together to keep their economies afloat despite sanctions. Except for India, the other 4 nations face Western embargoes. That's why their alliance is so important. They bypass restrictions through mutual trade. Energy as a geopolitical weapon. Russia's biggest trump card is its energy resources. For years, Russia has used oil and natural gas exports as a political tool. If a war breaks out, Russia can cut off energy supplies, leaving many countries in the cold and in the dark. Before our imaginary army even steps into Russia, nations dependent on Russian energy will pressure us to stop. Conclusion. The Invincible Fortress. Throughout history, Russia has successfully resisted invasions. Napoleon was forced to retreat from Moscow. The Germans were stopped in Stalingrad. Against NATO, Russia has always found a way to survive and counter threats. Looking at everything, its geography, military power, nuclear arsenal, alliances, and energy dominance, Russia still stands as one of the most invincible fortresses in the world.